Testing. Good morning and welcome to the Winners and Losers radio program. Although my good friend and co-host Karen Valentine here reminded me that I used to call it also the Paris on the Potomac, and that's a prettier name, you know.
Because the winners and losers doesn't seem so balanced anymore.
No, that's true.
Let's
Anyway,
let's go back to Paris.
okay. Uh, anyway, so welcome this morning. We're broadcasting on. By the way, that's a good thing for me to do is to turn on the streamer here. While we're come on, there we go. There we go. Yeah, we're broadcasting live on player.enlightenradio.org. And it usually takes me a day, sometimes two, depending on, what's going on, to get the podcast up. And then they're available at podcasts.enlightenradio.org. I do have a blog page called www.enlightenradio.org, but it got hacked last week, so I have to call the domain thing, get them to turn it off, back around. But anyway, I want to welcome this morning a special guest, Donaldson Twyman, who's the new president of the NAACP. A good friend of this program, and for many years, George Rutherford, who former president, and he retired, but he used to come on the program, and I can always remember asking him like a paragraph long question and him answering in 2 words. That's my favorite picture of was George, and he would usually nail the point, exactly. Anyway, so welcome to the program, Donaldson. Reason I contacted you was because my wife notified me, and I heard elsewhere too that there's there's going to be the Freedom March, which I believe is a Freedom Trail March, if I've got the phrase right, which is a longstanding tradition in Jefferson County, I believe, for the Jefferson County NAACP. But it's coming up, and I wanted to know your thoughts, and also those of us who want to participate, regardless of the weather, how we can get it together and what it means to you. So thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me this morning. And just to give you a little bit about me, a little background. I am Donaldson Twyman, Donnie Twyman, and I'm originally from Harpers, Ferry, West Virginia, born and raised. I kind of left the area for like 40 years, and I retired in 2021 and came back and made a decision to move back to this area. One of my motivations was the fact that I still had family here. My wife had family in the eastern shore of Maryland, so we thought that was a good move. Of course, I wanted to go to South Carolina where I can play more golf. But anyway, we decided to go to Charlestown, and it's a really great deal that we did. It's a good move. A little bit about me. I spent 37 and a half years in the transportation industry. I worked for FedEx, and I retired as a director. And I kind of moved around the country at least 7 times. I've been to Memphis, Texas, Boston, Massachusetts, Indianapolis, and then I retired and moved back here. And then before that, I spent another 7 years in another transportation industry company, which was UPS. So I know a lot about packages. And I've been in operations, I've been around people for a long, long time. One of the things that I believe in, and I've always believed in, is giving back to the community. I've served on several boards over the past years, and I've served mentoring organizations where we mentored troubled teens and whatnot. But so I've always had this thing about giving back to the community as much as I can. So when I retired, one of the first things I did was to become a full member, a lifetime member of the NAACP, and had a long discussion with my predecessor, George Rutherford. George Rutherford to me has been a mentor, has been an icon, has been a creator. He's been any word that you can think of, he's been that, because he was the president for 50 years of the NAACP. And that alone itself, I don't think if you go to the book of records. I don't think there's anyone that can serve 50 years of such of a large organization. He's done a lot. He's done a lot for the community. My mission going forward is to continue. People ask me, wow, those are some large shoes to fill. Well, you can't fill those shoes, but what I can do is make sure those shoes continue to march in the same direction. We have the same energy. So, because we're getting into a new administration, and there's going to be new challenges, and that's my whole thing is someone needs to be here to fulfill the mission, and that's what I chose to do. So hopefully I can give you a little insight about me.
Yes, let me what's the theme of the march each year? Tell us a little bit about the history of that march.
Well, this is, from my understanding, the march has been going on for decades. One of the things I called George yesterday, we're going to get probably 3 to 5 inches of snow on Sunday, and what happens? How do I potentially cancel or the march or postpone it? He says, I remember when it was below zero, and we had 3 people, and we marched. We marched from Martin Luther King Boulevard down to the, I think, Wright Denny at that time. I said, I get your message, George. It's clear. It's a memorial march. It's something that exemplifies what Martin Luther King was all about. It started decades ago. It's probably 40 years ago that he started this march. And it seems crowds as large as 300 or 400 people at one point. Of course, you're not that large now, but it's something that it reminds us of where we are, where we've been, and where we need to go.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, and it inspires me. I mean, for example, I read an editorial by a guy that's Robert Reich, very liberal fella, part of the Clinton circle, but actually probably on the liberal end of the Clinton circle, actually, and a good guy. But he had an op-ed which sounded like he had entered a state of depression. He said, gee, maybe we shouldn't talk about identity politics, and maybe we shouldn't protest, and maybe we should just wait it out. After all, it takes a long time for autocracies to actually come into, turn into Hitler or something. And then maybe we should wait for a great leader to come and save us, because charisma is so important. And well, I'm sorry, but I feel like showing up in the middle of the snowstorm on Sunday is a better move than becoming a couch potato for a year or two. And so I'm so grateful that I heard the news that you guys are going to hold this march, because I think reaching out to your neighbors, to do anything you can do, okay? Because if you're counting on somebody coming over the hill, a white knight to come over the hill to save you, I don't think anybody's coming over the hill except Spartacus. That's my personal opinion. So I'm looking forward to participating. I don't know, Karen, what are your thoughts?
It hits me, first of all, just the words you said about George Rutherford. He a spectacular example of a human being that we've had in our community, and you absolutely acknowledge that and recognize that, and kudos to you for carrying on the footsteps. So thank you for that, Donaldson. And then, I think John and I, personally, we've been co-hosts in one way or another for quite a while now, John.
Let's not say how many years.
Yeah, and we've gone round and round, times that we really felt like change was happening, time that we, to get both of us to feel hopeful at the same time is sometimes a challenge, but we've had a few of those moments. And I think last month right around November, 2 months ago, we both hit a wall. We did, and we were we didn't even have to say it to each other. We felt a blanket of tiredness. We felt confusion about what's next, um, and so it made me think of that, John, when you talked about Robert Wright, just where you almost are just so tired that you comply a little bit.
Right.
And we need every one of these celebrations, however great or small they are, to remind us that it is important to take
Mhm.
that next step. Even if it is just one or two steps that you can
Mhm.
do, we have to. I believe that even on the darkest days that I feel like, oh, this is going to be rough. Um, so I was really happy when John contacted me and said, we're just going to celebrate what's happening this weekend with the Freedom Festival because
Right. Right.
I know, Donnie, if you weren't here with us, I know the rabbit hole John and I would be going down right now.
Yeah, I know. Right. We would it'd be, oh no. Right. So what
So
can we
thank you for
do?
being uplifting. We look forward to you carrying the torch, for lack of a better way of putting it, and we support you. And this is exciting. And I think in the times where we are, these little morsels of hope and excitement are what are that's going to carry us through. That is going to
Exactly.
carry us through.
My
Exactly.
my memory of Dr. King, actually, I mean, my most interesting memory of him is from Newark, New Jersey in 1968. And there had been well, people called it civil rights riot. Actually, it was a police riot. uh, and the Leroy Jones, at the time, that was his name, and he had a very active, not only as a poet, but also in the rebellion that took place against the police riot. And there was, I can't remember the circumstances. I was there for a poetry festival, I remember, that was being held by the Dodge Foundation. But Dr. King came to Newark, and there had been all this, stuff about whether because Leroy Jones was taking a very militant position, on resistance. Let's just put it that way. And Dr. King was, of course, famously, an advocate of nonviolence. And but the most amazing thing happened when Dr. King got to the site of the rally, and then uh, his name was still, what's his name now? The old age is getting me here, senility, but Leroy Jones, what is the poet name? What's his name now? Well, you'll get, I'll remember it. Anyway, he comes up, Dr. King comes up the steps of these things and, and embraces Leroy Jones. And then he says to the crowd, you don't look so dangerous to me. And, it was the most unbelievable moment, really there, because you'd had all this press and all this stuff, and most of the press was, very much in the hiding the truth of what was happening in that community. Okay.
Mhm.
And painting these personalities in ways that almost cartoonish, right? And then that moment where this so-called argument was supposed to take place, and instead, brotherhood took place, and it was I'll never forget that. It's one of the most inspiring things that I ever saw, and it wasn't really. I mean, I don't think Dr. King spoke for more than about 3 minutes after that. I think Brother Jones was doing the speaking mostly, but still. I think now's the time to join together in Dr. King's spirit. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think there's
Yeah.
been another. We miss that voice. We miss that voice so much
Yeah.
in this country.
And you talked about the 60s. And of course, I was raised in the 60s, without giving my age, but I was raised in the 60s. And I remember Dr. King as a young man, as a boy, not even a teenager. And what he stood for, and what my parents made me understand what he stood for. And then, of course, the assassination happened, and then everything else, this kind of history, as that we do. So the sad part about all this is that, I think about the involvement of the NAACP, the role it plays in society, is that here it is, 2024, and we're still talking pretty much about the same stuff. And that's the sad part of this, is that at this point, and my vision is that that's why we got to continue the fight, because even the small battles or fights, is that we're still battling the same stuff, pretty much. And it and that's why I want people to continue the mission, and don't get silenced by everything's okay, because we can't see everything. When you look at civil injustice, you look at housing inequity, you look at economic differences, you look at gender differences in gender salaries, and so there's a lot of things that go on, and people they just don't put it in their minds. But we got to continue to peel back the onion and see what's really going on, so if we can get past this. And we've gotten better over the years. I mean, I've been in corporate America for almost 40 years. I watched a lot of it. I watched what affirmative action does and how it impacts you, how it impacts me. We hear people talking about getting rid of all those type of programs. We're talking about people getting rid of books. We're talking about people trying to change the whole face of history. So it's more than just the NAACP battle. It's not about just the National Advancement Association for Advancement of Colored People. It's the advancement for all people, and it's that are not as fortunate as other people. So I guess my interest runs really deep, because my little choo-choo train's going down the hill. I've worked, I've retired, I'm okay. But I'm talking about the XY generations and the generations behind them and all that stuff. We're talking about Social Security, we're talking about Medicaid, Medicare, all this stuff that we're talking about that, that people are trying to change and manipulate. And if we don't have an interest into peeling back that onion, and then before you know it, I don't know what kind of society we'll have, but it would be a different world. So that's where I stand with it. I don't know the impact I'll have, but hopefully I have some impact, because I have a big interest in it, and I have a lot of energy to provide. So that's where I am.
Well, and I think everything that you've touched on is a lot of where John and I go when you talk about social and political issues. We have all of the hot topics and the button points, but in the end, so many of our social and political ills can be traced back to hope, to an individual's complete mind, body, soul, and the ability to succeed and have a life that feels hopeful. And it is all the work of every organization.
Mm-hmm.
Every little thing we do, I have to continue to believe does make a difference, because when we imagine the world that our youth is living in, and how different that is. And I mean, you can compare it to, the plight of colored folk back in the day, where, they it was an uphill battle to think about going to college, to think about going to anywhere that wasn't segregated. And so without those seeds, without the work, without the little bits of hope that good leaders inspire people with, we are on that train's going backward. So
Exactly.
a lot of the bigger problems I always feel come back to that seed of hope that we all need to keep alive.
Yeah, I agree. I think hope is the word and that has been prevalent. It goes back decades, and I think what happened, especially go back to the '60s and that, is that that's what we kind of build our strength off of was hope. Hope that we can institute some type of change. Hope that we can prevent something from just hope that we don't get discouraged. And that's what this thing is all about: is not getting discouraged, but being encouraged to continue to fight. So
I think that's a wonderful message to we'll try to spread it out. By the way, the timing of the march again, is this going to be at 1 o'clock? When should people arrive?
it's going to start at 1:30. It's going to be at the side entrance of the Charlestown Library. We'll be set up
Okay.
there. The parking is good parking right along the street there. So, and we're going to have 3 speakers, and they've been told they give a 5-minute message, and of course it might be 10 minutes. So we know how that goes.
I know how sermons
Then
go. Yeah.
yeah, and then we're going to march down to the Jefferson County Ministries building, which is the old J.C. Penney building, and which is on Lawrence Street, and march back on the same side of the street just to make sure we keep it safe and short. But that's what we're doing.
Okay. Well, that sounds. I'm planning on being there
Well,
myself.
good.
I think. Well, I wanted to before we sign out, one more little round here. If you have another 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
I mentioned, I think in the letter to you guys that recent consultations with the state labor movement indicate that the healthcare is likely to be a big target, of the supermajority in the West Virginia House. And of course, that's going to be in concert with the Trump administration's at least claim, as details are not available yet, claim that they're going to roll back the Obamacare provisions, especially for Medicaid. And so that should be an important fight. I mean, because I think that has to be fought, because it's going to cause a tremendous amount of harm if it gets rolled all the way back to what it was before the Affordable Care Act came into place.
Right.
And, well, Karen could testify to this based personally herself, and I'm sure many others can as well. So I think that while we're all waiting, but I think that you can't underestimate the power of solidarity if it can express itself. But the essence of solidarity, at least in the morality of the labor movement, okay, and then the economy makes it difficult to keep our pledges sometimes. But the morality says don't leave people behind. Find work for everyone to do and take
Right.
care of each other. And if you don't do that, solidarity will unglue. Okay. I mean, it will. If you're going to leave, that's more, those people are going to be left behind over there. But it's so important to do this thing over here. Okay. Well, you can't tell the mine workers that.
Mm-mm.
You can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that comes around is that if you can keep it together, treasure the solidarity that you have, then you can develop the kind of power that Dr. King's message embodied, and it was powerful, and it saved our country in an important way. And I hope we can Hope we
Mhm.
can find that well of power and wisdom again, because it's going to take power, hope, and power to turn this. I'm afraid we're living on the Titanic a little bit. I don't know about you guys,
Mm.
but
Yeah. That's a great point. And it's also going to take communication and podcasts that you guys are running and get people to hear the message because you guys provide a really good message for people to hear. And people need to take time to hear it. And you speak of solidarity. It's 2.2 million members, NAACP, NAACP, and there's probably another million or so people that are associated with it, but are not members. So and you talk about numbers, and that's how you're going to change things. You can change things. People think that you can change things through numbers and getting people involved and giving them the message, give them the initiative to get involved to make change. But change is not easy. Okay, trust me, I was out there 40 years, and invoking change is not an easy thing. But you don't get discouraged once you come to the first obstacle. The first hurdle. You just jump that hurdle and go on to the next level. So it's you're right. Solidarity is going to be key, and communication is going to get key. And I really appreciate this first time I've ever heard of your podcast, but I appreciate this type of communication because we need it. It's
All
needed.
right.
It's really helpful. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Donnie, and welcome to the community. And
Yeah.
it's just wonderful. And obviously, your position in FedEx, you know that every little spoke of the wheel is part of what makes it turn.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's a great way to put it. That's a great way
Yeah.
to put it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, this will be up and it's a podcast on, let's see, podcast.enlightenradio.org, and we'll get it up today, so that we get a little publicity around on social media and other places to get a little turnout on Sunday for the Freedom March in Charlestown, West Virginia, at the side entrance to the library. Okay. So
Right.
you might even meet a county commissioner there. Probably not at that time, but anyway, I look forward to seeing you there. Okay. And we can walk around and remember the message of Dr. King.
Thank you,
All right.
John, and thank
Thank
you,
you.
Karen. Thank you very,
All
very
right,
much.
everybody. Take care, everybody. It's late, but everything comes next.